Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Dak Chats. And, man, it's good to be back. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Whenever you start pouring in, just let me know in the chat. Make sure everything's sounding okay. Man, what an episode tonight. I have to say, this started out as... I wouldn't say started out, but a few minutes into it, when Nicole first came out of the DR crying, those first couple of minutes I was a little angry because it appeared that they were starting to try and manipulate the events of what happened and convert it into something that wasn't the case. But I soon kind of realized what they were doing. I think for that specifically, when she kept saying... I'm just so upset about how I have to throw this veto, and I'm such a competitor, and I just can't bring myself to do that. I think that was just them kind of trying to cover their bases a little bit, because the reality is, for those of you that have been keeping up with the feeds, and this isn't spoilers because this is up to this point, but those of you that are keeping up with the feeds, it sounded as though, from what we could tell, that she had kind of heard some stuff from the producers, indicating that she might be getting a bad look based on how Taylor's been treated and all that kind of stuff. Here, let me fix that real quick. Oh, there we go. I don't know if that's better or not. But anyway, but yeah, so she was led to kind of realize that maybe the portrayal of some of the people was not necessarily all that great because of how it appeared Taylor was being treated. So in that portion, I started to be like, I was getting a little angry because I felt that they were manipulating the edit more so than they normally do. But after a few minutes, it appeared, that was just that specific thing, just from a production standpoint. In my opinion, when the episode was over, this felt to me like it was one of my favorite episodes we've ever seen. A lot of that reason is because they actually showed what happened. They were truthful. They were just about as honest as they could be in regards to the entire situation. They may have not been necessarily forthright in the first week or two with the Taylor stuff, but man, it really kind of showed. It kind of felt jarring to a lot of the audience, probably. And the funny thing is, it felt really jarring to Taylor because we can go on about how she just has no idea the extent of everything, but the fact of the matter is, with Daniel and Nicole, initially, they weren't upset at her. Like, when the game first started and they all first started meeting, they liked Taylor. Nicole's even said in the DR on the episode in, the first week, I don't really see exactly what Taylor did, but I'm just going to have to go along with it. And that became the narrative over time so long that they started buying into other people's lies, so much so that it caused them to believe it themselves, almost like they were believing their own lie. And it was the only other alternative I could say to disgusting, evil, horrid watching that. It was interesting seeing how they could manage to flip that from a psychological perspective, but it was excuse me, it was not a fun experience. So we'll get into all that.
Auto shutdown initiated.
Oh goodness. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Actually, that is going to be really annoying. Let's see here. Let's just turn that down and see what that does. Okay. Hopefully that fixes that. That doesn't pop back up. But anyway, guys, yeah, let's just jump right into it from the beginning. When the when the episode first returns from the nomination ceremony, we see Turner talking about his target is Brittany overall, but if something happens and her or Michael win and they come down, that Taylor is his backup option. It's the easy house target. He doesn't really want to get blood on his hands. I'm not entirely sure why he won this HOH, because he had no desire to really do anything this week, especially when it came to the nominations. He didn't really want to talk to people. He didn't want to get involved. So, seeing his extent of, just wanting to do, again, it's become the norm. Everyone wants to just go with the house and what the house wants. But, just how he's just like, doesn't really care about any of it. He doesn't even have his own target or any idea, is disappointing. But he says, if they go down, he wants to put up Taylor and Nicole, try and get Taylor backdoored, because it's the house target. It'll be easy vote. He won't get any more blood on his hands and all that yada yada. Nicole mentions that she wants Brittany and Michael to win the veto to pull themselves down, because she wants her and Taylor to go up so Taylor can get backdoored. And we see Taylor talking about how she wants to win just so she can secure her safety. She's been able to kind of see that she's not the most loved person in the house at this point. So she always knows. For her, it's really sad, and it is very interesting how up till tonight's episode, the past 2.5 weeks, she's just been living. Once she kind of realized where her position was at, she's just kind of been living almost in despair nonstop. She's not been able to forge very many bonds with anyone, to kind of put herself in a position where she doesn't have to feel targeted. I don't know if she has that sense of, oh yeah, I'm great with everyone, but at any point I could go home. That'd be a really tough way to go that long, because we know people do experience that in the house, but to be from week 2 and it just to continue on and on is just, it's really sad, especially with the reasons as to why she is even in that position to begin with. But that's we've already gone, that horse has been beat. But Amira says that she thinks Michael, or she's wanting Michael. She thinks Michael can win because he's already won 2. So she's confident that he's going to pull himself down. They'll be able to backdoor Taylor. She goes to Turner and tells him that, and she also tells Turner that Taylor has told her that if she were to win HOH, she's actually going to go for a guy. So that just reinforces Turner's draw into, obviously she's no good for my game. She's coming after me, so it just makes sense for me to go ahead and get her out. So, again, just the same old. From there, we see Turner talks to Nicole, and he mentions to her, hey, if you see yourself on the block, if the veto's played, or sorry, whoever wins the veto, if it's used and the noms come off and you find yourself on the block, don't be worried. You're not the target. The goal is to backdoor Taylor. Nicole says, oh yeah, great. I've already been thinking that. That's what I'm hoping to do this week. That's where my goal is. I'm not worried. I know we have the numbers and all that stuff. So she's on board. And Monty was in there as well, and they kind of talk a little bit about that. Then we see Nicole. She talks about how she's excited because Turner's already thinking along the same lines. She's not going to have to fight and try and argue her way in. She already knows that Turner's targeting them, and if she goes up, she knows what's going on. We see from there, and this is where the episode just shifts altogether. Thank you. Yes, the background is still a work in progress, but I like it thus far. It's really, really cool. But here we see where the episode takes a shift. And it kind of reverts back at a certain point, but from this point on until the veto competition starts, we immediately see it go straight into the formation of everything that is to come for the week. We start out with Monty and Taylor, and I did miss a portion of that conversation because while my son was asleep, my cat decided it wanted to try and wake him up, and I had to rip the cat out. So I did miss a little bit of that part. But the overall gist of the conversation was basically Taylor, she knows that she's coming across cold. She knows that people aren't really connecting with her. And she mentions how this is something she's experienced all throughout her life because, you know, that's initially, and she's talked about this before on the feeds too, where she's telling people, that's just my personality. That's how I am. It takes me time to open up about, you know, personal stuff and really get to know people. And she even says it's kind of difficult for her to make friends. You know, and she mentions how because of, you know, her race and things she's experienced growing up, she's always tried to just try and make the best of it. And it just continues to rip you apart watching the way everything has been going down. And you know, and Monty kind of reiterates that, and he tells her, you know, he appreciates her talking to him, and sharing that with him, and he does feel more connected to Taylor after having that conversation, after her opening up to him about that. So that kind of sets up what's going to happen later, and then we see them jump straight into one of the I will say this is probably going to be one of the most remembered moments from this season, and depending on how successful this alliance becomes, it has the potential to be one that we talk about for a long time. And if that's the case, this scene right here is going to be influential in so many ways in future seasons and discussions about future potentials and all that stuff. But we see Monty, Kyle, Turner, and Joseph, and they're talking in the HOH room. And Kyle says that the last couple weeks, especially last week, changed a lot. It started to kind of show where everyone's thoughts were. Now, he was part of the initial decision to get Pooch out instead of going for Taylor. But he realized that, you know, once him and Monty started to think at that point, well, no, it's better for us to keep Pooch. At that time, they didn't trust Taylor, and they're like, you know, Pooch, yeah, he talks to everyone. He's making alliances with everyone, but he tells us info that he's not telling anyone else. He trusts us more, so we need to keep him. And how hard, and we all remember the scene where Nicole and Amira are strong-arming them into saying, no, I get that, we'll go for Taylor next week, but this week we have not had a chance. We're not going to have another chance like this to get Pooch out. He literally volunteered himself to go up. He's a threat, and we need to get this dude out. He is a huge threat to our games. He's not working with any of the girls. He 100% believes in this Oasis Guys Alliance, and he is way more of a threat than Taylor is to us at this moment. Next week, yes, Taylor's a threat to everyone else's game, and we get that, and we'll help you guys out. And I think that changed a lot for Michael and Monty, or sorry, Kyle and Monty, in ways that I personally didn't even see at the time, because I watched that event go down live, watching the feeds, and what didn't even really occur to me is how they could even kind of flip that. And I haven't necessarily heard anything firsthand from them watching the feeds that indicated that they did have some type of thought process throughout the last week or so, trying to figure out or trying to understand what was going on and kind of put pieces together that they are at the bottom. But they do up in the HOH room. And so you can tell that they've been kind of thinking about this for a little bit, that now they're realizing they don't have any interest in us. They don't care about our game. They don't care about what's good for us. They only care about themselves. And you hear Monty say that as well. And he's saying that, all they care about is making sure that they're safe. But they didn't even consider if that's good for our game, getting Taylor out. They just want it because it's good for their game. And so, Kyle talks about how Alyssa told him about the girls, and that there's this girls alliance, and they're all coming after the guys. And that starts to stir that up a little bit when they're like, well, again, that just reinforces that notion that they're not, they don't care about us. They have no desire in what's best for us. All they care about is making sure all the girls get to the end. Kyle starts mentioning how, the only two people that have not been included in that is Brittany and Taylor. And he talks about, Taylor is on the outs of everyone. She has no alliance. And Monty has started to kind of come to the realization at this point. And he might, if he mentioned it in here, I missed it. I do believe on the feeds, either during this conversation or just a little bit after, he mentions how he has basically realized that Taylor was telling the truth. He knows she was telling the truth about everything that happened with Paloma. And he had, a few days before, they had finally talked a little bit. He finally gave her the opportunity to talk about what actually happened, and he does hear her out. So he starts to realize that, yeah, Paloma was kind of just throwing all this at the wall and was really all for the girls, had no interest in him. That's a good question. I'm gonna go ahead and put all your questions in the live chat, and then after the recap, we're gonna follow that up. We'll go ahead and answer that one though, because I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Do we think Jasmine will continue to find ways to get out of comps? She's such an attention seeker. It's possible. I can definitely. I don't have a fear of heights like that. I've been at pretty tall places and it really hasn't bugged me. But I do understand. I can understand the fear. I've seen some of those videos of people jumping off buildings and barely hitting the edge, and they're 50 miles up and in the air, and that can be nerve wracking. So I understand the fear of heights, but this is Big Brother. I mean, you're signing up, and she signed up. She knew what she was getting into. So for her to be in that position, it's I wouldn't be surprised if she did. I think she's starting to kind of milk the ankle a little bit. And you know what? I've heard a lot of talk about, if you're injured, you should leave, right? You should have enough respect for the game. You should leave and not make the show a clown based on you trying to compete. I mean, we saw it in season 19 with Christmas. She had the boot on, and she literally won a leg race competition against everyone else. Now, yes, that was thrown to her, but just watching the hilariousness of that, people are they feel like she should just walk, right? Have enough respect for the game. And I do understand, like, I am 100% on that boat, but well, yes, as a viewer and as a fan, I feel like we should just, have that mentality to respect the game that much, when you're in there and you're going up against $750,000 and that's on the line, and you have gone from 1-16 to 1-14, and it is kind of an easy thing to do to just carry her along till the end, because there's going to be some of the stuff she just can, as long as she's got that boot on. And, you know, there's other stuff too that's causing her to back out because of that. So, you know, we'll see. But if it does continue to happen, I mean, even this, they were like, yeah, you can compete. Like, even the medics, like, you can compete. And, you know, we had the notes later, but she just didn't care. You know, and it's annoying, but I mean, I understand from that perspective. You're up against, you can win $750,000. That's what your main focus is, but I don't think it should be up to her. I think production should have rules in place to, well, if you're injured and you can't compete in competitions. I mean, if it were like for 1 week, you know, one Veto, one HOH, because even like in season 16, Jocasta, she got so sick she couldn't compete, and she was on the block, and you know, we saw Donnie had to go out and said he was going to go play for her and win for her, and he did, pulled her off. You know, things like that happen, and I wouldn't want someone to just be out just for a very, very short term, but I do think they should be very much involved in getting this stuff out. Yeah, I couldn't imagine her on the challenge, and I don't think she's going to be someone that would be approached for the challenge. She doesn't come across as a competitor based on her mentality and the type of personality she's been portraying, and also based on how the edits finally starting to go and truly reflect the feeds. I don't know that they would want to welcome that type of controversy into there. That'd be open up a whole can of all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, good question. And yeah, and any other questions we'll save towards the end of the stream, so we can kind of go through the episode and just touch back. But feel free to put them in, and we'll go over them. You know, just whenever you have a question, put them in, and we'll go back over those at the end. So where do we leave off? Monty, he was talking about, you know, he does start to see that all this is going around. So Kyle is saying, well, everyone's leaving Taylor out. If we can reel her in, I think she's loyal. She seems very loyal. She is a good competitor. She's already shown that she's a good competitor. We could really, really utilize her as a tool, as a weapon, which is something that some of the other side of the house, you know, Amira had talked about as well last week, but it appears that kind of fell through. But I think Kyle really means it when he says that. Excuse me. I think Kyle really means that when he says it. And, you know, they're starting to see, and what's so cool, and I was going to touch on it a little bit later, but what's so cool is we never see this. We see all the outcasts, and you look at someone like Kyle and Monty and Joseph, and, you know, you see people like, and even Taylor, you know, you see people like this that you would not imagine to be on the outs. Usually they're being approached. And I do got to hand it to the girls on one side. Every single season, they always try and form a girls' alliance, and it never works. You know, and kind of the age-old saying with that is, when guys form an alliance, they don't go to every single guy in the house. They get 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys, 6 total, and they build on that, but they don't bring everyone in. They find the right people for the group. And when the girls typically make an alliance, they just bring all the women in. And that's not what they did. They did kind of start going along those lines. They went with the people that they felt were going to be the best fit for that group. Unfortunately, their reasoning for the people that they didn't want to include was insulting, to say the least. So anyway, but so, you know, the girls have been significantly more successful in forming this group and actually carrying out what they're trying to do. but they have too many loose ends, and they didn't narrow it down enough. They're too blindsided. Even the smartest of them, which, I feel like in that group, the smartest is Nicole and Amira, they still can't even see that some of the people in their group, while they may try and bring people closer in, they're not doing a good enough job at masking the real information that they only want in the tight circle. And that's kind of been their downfall, because now Alyssa has this information and she is crushing on Kyle like no other and is wanting to give this information. I mean, she's just, she already sees him as her boyfriend, right? That's kind of obvious. She already kind of views him that way. And so when you have a significant other, you share your experiences. When you come home from work, you talk about the events of your job. When you talk about things that your friend said or things that, went on in your personal life, you discuss all of that, right? And she kind of has that same kind of mentality, I feel like, with Kyle already. So they've already got a kind of a married couple in the house that, she's going straight to him. Now, that relationship is fairly one-sided, at least from a game perspective. Outside of the game, who knows? But, it doesn't seem that way as much. But from a game perspective, Kyle is very much like, I like Alyssa a lot, but I'm going to take all the information and use it. And I don't necessarily think that's what he was doing here. I think in this moment, he was like, kind of, they had all of them together and they were just kind of starting to piece all the pieces together. And he's like, well, Alyssa told me that there's a girls' alliance, and Taylor and Brittany are the only ones that aren't in it. So, they really start putting all these pieces together and realize, yeah, we're on the outs. We're on the outside. None of them are really working with us. They say they are, but they're not giving us any information. They clearly have allegiances elsewhere that are far more important to them. And it's really starting to make them realize that they're on the outs. They don't have a solid group to attach themselves to. They don't have solid allies. And it is just watching this group of outsiders pour in and come together is something that we just don't see very often. We're always screaming, saying, why do they never talk to each other? Why did they never come together? And I do think a part of that has to do with the fact that, yes, Kyle and Monty and Joseph, especially Kyle and Monty, they are not the type of people that are usually left out of this group. But the girls wanted to form a girls-only group, and that's why they found themselves on the outs. And so I think that they are the type of players that initiate things, that are willing to jump on things, that most of the time the outsiders aren't that type of way. They might want to, they might figure everything out, but they just can't make that push. But Kyle and Monty have that confidence to be like, no, we can pull this together, and we're not going to let this other side of the house just run us over. We're not going to do that. So they finally have this meeting, and they talk about, look, this is the this is the core, right? Let's bring in, Michael and Brittany and Taylor, because we need the numbers, right? If we're going to, because just before this, they start talking about, they see Amira walking on the camera. They see her walking to the bathroom. They're like, it's late at night. She's going to notice we're gone because of how smart she is. And then she's going to go relay that back to the girls. And then that's going to become another topic of concern that we're going to have to deal with. And she will totally do that if she does catch it. And she very well probably would. Now, I don't know that she did. I haven't heard any indication that she did. But, they start seeing she's a smart person. She's playing a great game. She has been behind a lot of the push that's been going on the first 2 weeks. Been behind a lot of the decisions that's being made. What if Michael and Brittany do win the veto? And instead of putting up Nicole and Taylor, like Nicole is practically begging us to do, so she can get Taylor out and the whole house can backdoor her, why don't we put up Amira and Terrence? Amira's a threat to our game. She's not a threat to the other side. The other side doesn't see her that way because they're working with her. And those people are her alliance. They're where her main allegiance lies. That's who she trusts more. That's who she's going with more than any of us. They're coming right after us. They're going to try and take the guys out. They want all the next few people going out to be guys, minus Taylor and maybe Brittany. The rest of them, they want guys. So they're going to be coming after us. Because even after they get Taylor and Brittany out, there's still a couple more weeks where they're going to have to get the rest of us guys out. And they're going to want the least amount of guys and jury as possible, too. Because if they can get, obviously, 2 girls, doesn't really matter, but they get 1 girl and 1 guy ends up getting to the end, they want more girls to give themselves a better chance at getting that female to win. So they start talking about how, we need numbers. If we're going to make this vote flip happen, we got to get the numbers to do it. So they start talking about, well, we got Michael, Brittany that are on the outs. They're at the depths of whatever alliances they're with. And we got Taylor, who's been ostracized this whole time. And as Kyle said, she's loyal. I can tell you, I can feel it. She seems like a loyal person. We've already been able to see that she's a good competitor. That's who we need to reel in. So they go, so they start talking about that's going to be our new plan. And after the veto, we need to see about pulling the others in. And they start talking about they need to pull these others in, and they need to get these numbers depending on what happens at veto, because something could happen and it doesn't matter, right? The wrong person gets picked for veto, the wrong person wins, and it doesn't matter. Because if someone wins and doesn't pull down, or does pull down Mike, if someone wins, first you have to be sure that they're going to pull down Michael and Brittany, and the house target right now is Brittany. So she's not the most likely person to be, they're not the most likely group to be pulled down. So unless they win, noms are probably going to stay the same. And then we're going to have to get out Brittany. And then we're going to lose one of our potential numbers. So, they wait for the veto players to get picked. And then we see the veto draw. And we see Michael, Brittany, and Turner, as we knew. And then Turner says that because Jasmine's his BB bestie, the draw this for the veto draw during the BB bestie twist, there's going to be 3 groups of besties total. And so Michael and Brittany obviously already a set. Turner himself's going to have him and his bestie Jasmine, who I thought was, unfortunate that someone with no power just randomly gets to be selected, but whatever. These weird twists. And then he will pick the remaining group. The remaining BB bestie couple. So he draws Cole and Taylor. So we got Michael, Brittany, Turner, Jasmine, Cole, and Taylor. And then we see straight from that, that's when it gets even worse. And like I said, initially, they start having it look like Nicole is upset that she's going to have to throw the situation because she's a competitor. She's a fighter. She's not a quitter. She doesn't throw stuff. This is hard for her. She's a competitive person. She can't bring herself to throw a comp. And it's destroying her. It's destroying her because she can't bring herself to lose on purpose. Right? That's not what a competitor does. Well, watching that portion, I was a little angry. And like I said earlier, I get why they probably did it. Production can't really show them telling her information. They don't show any feedback coming from production at all when being asked questions in the DR. But they definitely can't have it shown that she was fed information by production to some degree, or at least she walked away from that last DR session realizing that she's coming across as a bully to Taylor, and that she is what's being interpreted to her is she might need to back down a little bit. And that pisses her off. She is all angry. And she gets really upset. And she starts crying, and she comes out of the DR sobbing. And I didn't catch, I did actually watch all this on the feeds, but I was working at the time, so I had to kind of keep it in and out a little bit. I didn't see initially, but there were 4 other people in the back room, and she's just like, I need the room to myself for a minute, get out. And everyone, understandably so, because first off, unless you are having a true, real personal issue, which we've seen in Big Brother, we do get unfortunate events where someone's loved one does die. We had Derek and Frankie, both their grandpas died within 2 weeks of each other. No, within the same week of each other. Within the same nomination week, we had 2 house guest family members die, both grandpas. And both of them, Frankie handled it his way. He came out crying, and of course there was a bunch of people out there already, but that's his way of receiving comfort, as he was immediately shared it with everyone and trying to have a shoulder to cry on. We saw Derek right after that. He was like, oh, what, everything happens in twos. And that happens to him, and he goes and people follow him. Cody, when he had that happen in 22, he was able to just go back there and just have time to himself. So there are instances where it could be excused for you to just walk into a room and say, I need the room to myself. Everyone get out. Well, that's not just your room. That's everyone's room. So you have you just being a little emotional does not give you the right to just immediately come in and start barking that everyone leave. Especially when everyone else is sleeping there too. But, she does anyway. And she starts, Daniel follows her in, and they immediately cut a ton of information that was actually said. And starts talking about how she's so upset she's going to have to throw this veto. Taylor's going to try and fight for it, and she's got to throw it. Like we said, what was really going on was she was informed that what was being said to Taylor, she was getting a negative portrayal of that. And she shared a lot of that with Daniel, which is a lot of what fueled that. That's why he had such a jerk reaction in the bathroom a little bit later on. But everyone just starts panicking, and they're worried about Nicole. And they're like, her mom has cancer. Her mom is currently seeking cancer treatment, and everyone's worried that that's what's going on. And I gotta say, I honestly did not think any of this would make the final cut. I didn't. I thought because of the actual reason she was upset that it was going to be just completely cut because I couldn't show it. Turns out they were able to manipulate it in a way, which, great job, production on that. For people that don't watch the feeds and only watch the episode, that is a really good example of how they can edit stuff. And if you're not watching the feeds and you're not watching the updates, you're not getting all the information, and they are going to show you whatever version that they want to show. That being said, they didn't really have much of any other choice. There was no other narrative, and they do love their fights. So when all this occurred, they really had no other choice but to display it. So, everyone's worried about her, and they all kind of, after a little bit, they all start kind of coming in, and, they're like, we're so sorry, is everything okay? And I didn't catch it if they showed on the episode, but on the feed, Daniel does eventually come out and say, hey, it's not a false alarm with her mom. Everything's okay. Her mom's fine. She's going through some personal stuff. But yeah, her mom's good. So don't worry about that. And during that conversation that they're having, just so angry. I've never been so happy with an episode of Big Brother, yet so angry watching it, because this part was on the feeds. The fight later wasn't, but I didn't catch all of the audio myself. I knew everything that happened, but I didn't catch all the audio. So I did kind of hear. I'd read that this is what was said, but actually hearing it said was just disgusting. So we hear Daniel and Nicole both talking about, we got to get rid of Taylor. She's coming after all of us. Nicole's even like, I didn't do anything to Taylor. She's got no reason to be upset with me. I don't have a problem with her, but Daniel's like, well, I do. She's going to come after me. I got to get her out. And she's like, I know. And I hate that. I hate that for you. She's coming after you, and now you got to worry about that. And Daniel says, all right, I can't remember who said it first, but they both basically say, I don't think Taylor's good. I don't even consider her a good person. While Taylor is sitting in the living room talking to Monty, who's a very religious individual, as we saw when Paloma left, and he wanted to pray for Paloma. And she tells him, and you didn't see this on the episode, but she did say, hey, I'm not a very religious person, but would you say a prayer with me, for Nicole, and for her mom? Anyone that's seen the episodes, that hasn't watched the feeds, that hasn't watched the updates, that said, well, she obviously has done something wrong, right? She's obviously done something to rub these people the wrong way. She's obviously been rude and has been a bully. She's beaten these people down. There it is. It's just, it's right there. That is, and for anyone that is still in that same boat and might think, well, she might have just been saying that in the moment because she felt like that would be an appropriate time. She wanted to come across endearing and kind. No, that has literally been her entire personality throughout the entire season. Anytime anyone's been upset about anyone, anytime anyone has came at her and said, you did something wrong, you offended us, said, I am so sorry. I never meant to upset you. I never meant to do anything wrong. I never meant to make you feel like I was coming across a certain way or hurt anyone. And she immediately starts apologizing and starts making excuses as to why maybe she did come across that way. Hey, I do have these personality traits, and people have said that about me before, and that's something that I need to work on, and I'm just sorry, right? Excuse me. That's all that this has been. So she goes over and she talks to DR first. Taylor does, and she says, I want Nicole to know that, mental health is the most important thing. And she's got family out there that's having problems. And if something's wrong in her personal life that's causing her to have, that's causing her to struggle, I want her to know that as her bestie, as her partner, which is what Taylor assumes Nicole is, she's assuming that, yes, they are grouped together, and if they go up together, and then they have to campaign against each other. But she's assuming that Nicole picked her so they could be partners, so they could be friends and work as a team. So she goes to her teammate, to her friend who was hurting, and who might be hurting for more than she knows, because it may very well have to do with something with her mom. She goes and tells her, listen, I want you to know that if you feel that you need to leave, I don't want you to worry about that. You do what you need to do for you. Don't worry about anything else. And what does Nicole say about that? She says, I actually have it here. Where was it? Where'd it go? Nicole says, I appreciate you saying that, but I'm here to win. I'm not a quitter. I'm not gonna leave. I'm not gonna let other people have an influence on me and have other people get me to leave. She's like, I appreciate you saying that, but that's not who I am. And she says to us in the DR that Taylor's coming to her with where'd it go? With a negative energy, and she's gonna stand up for herself. When people do that, when people come at her with that type of negative energy, she's gonna stand up for herself, and that's what she's doing. So Nicole goes to the bathroom. She says, no one talk to me. I'm angry. I don't want to talk. And then everyone says, well, what's wrong? And so Taylor goes right to Daniel and says, she came up to me and said, if you need to quit, don't worry, you can quit. Daniel's like, how dare her? How dare her come at me like that? Why would she, or not me, how dare her come after you like that? That is so rude. That is so hateful. And he tells the DR, she's coming after Nicole, and she's manipulating her in her moment of weakness. She's got all this emotional stuff that's going on outside the house, and she's using that to her advantage, try and take out Nicole, just like I think she did to Paloma. I heard him say that, and I said, I turned to my wife and I said, listen, they can't say anything about why Paloma was ejected, why she left. They can't comment on it. HIPAA and all that stuff. Right? And that's fine. But I do feel like as long as they have a legal ability to do so, they should put at the end of this, a disclaimer at the end of this episode saying, while we cannot talk about anything in regards to Paloma's personal matter that caused her to leave, we can say that Taylor had nothing to do with it. Now, I get they won't, because Paloma has claimed that she did after getting out. And I guess technically Taylor did have something to do with it, but only from what Paloma has enforced in her own head that was said. So the fact that they're still going at her, and that's touched on a little bit later, it's disgusting, because that's not what happened. So Taylor walks in the bathroom, and Daniel says, Taylor, just stop, okay? Just stop acting fake. And she's like, oh, I'm being fake? Oh, okay, oh, whatever. And he says that you're doing the same thing that you did to Paloma. Same thing. And she's like, wait, what? And he starts yelling at her, and then he storms off. Taylor's like, I thought he was kidding. And she's like, I thought it was kidding. She starts crying. She's like, what's going on? And she starts following, and Nicole's still sitting there. And she's like, oh, that's between you and him. That's between you and him, man. I mean, I'm not going to get involved. It's between you and him. And she follows Daniel out and says, Daniel, what did I do? Like, did I upset you? Like, what did I say? Like, tell me, like, what did I say? I'm sorry. Like, tell me. Like, I want to know what I did to offend you. And he starts saying that, you know, she's been taking advantage and you know, the whole 9 years. You took advantage of Paloma's mental health. She was having issues and you forced that on her, and now she's gone. And now you did the same thing to Taylor, or you're doing the same thing to Nicole. And what does Taylor say? Where'd it go? She says, I missed it. I had it in here. She basically says, it's not my fault. That's not my fault. And so we hear in the DR, and she's crying. And she's like, I keep trying to help people, but it seems like every time I'm just trying to help and be nice and be kind, I just end up hurting people. And she is truly heartbroken about it. And then we see her go over to Nicole, and she goes to Nicole, and she's like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to upset you. And Amira sees all this, and she says even she thinks that this went on a little too far. And she makes the comment, which I'm so glad. I don't know if I'm sure she probably did come with some version of this, and then production was like, okay, we need you to rephrase that because we need the audience to know from a narrative perspective that you guys don't know what's going on with Paloma and that he isn't aware. Since you mentioned to us that you feel that way, can you rephrase that this way? I'm sure that's had to be what happened, because you know the mentality that everyone's had, including Amira, has been along those same lines. But even Amira says, you know, I didn't like that. That was a little much. And he shouldn't be commenting and telling Taylor that she caused Paloma to leave, because we don't know what happened to Paloma, right? We don't know why she's gone. That's personal. So we don't need to be targeting anyone and pointing fingers at anyone until we're out of here and we get some version of the truth, or we're at least able to rewatch the tape and see what happened. And so Taylor goes over to Nicole, and she says, you know, she never meant to offend her. You know, all she was doing was trying to help, be polite, show kindness. And Nicole says that she tells Taylor, you need to learn how you speak to people, because you were very passive aggressive. And we see Joseph, and he's talking to DR, and he says, I have never seen her say anything that was rude or malicious. She has only ever been polite. And this is disgusting. And it's really making him sad. And he's getting upset by it. And Nicole says, I'm a 41-year-old woman. I don't need anyone telling me when I can quit, when I can give up. Because she's not a quitter. Nicole is not a quitter. Well, she definitely will become one in just another hour or two, based on how bad she throws the veto competition. So she most certainly is. And then Taylor goes back, comes to her and says, I was angry watching this whole thing. I was angry. I was furious. This part, I didn't, but I almost teared up when I hear Nicole just say, I understand. I'm sorry. As if she's a 4-year-old kid getting scolded by their parent. And as a parent to a 4-year-old, that is exactly the way that children are spoken to. Now, whether you should or shouldn't, whatever, but that is how a child's spoken to. And when you see that a child is truly upset and bothered by the actions they did and how it affected someone, you don't just keep railing into them. You help them understand it's all good. You weren't ill-intentioned. What you did wasn't necessarily good, but it wasn't ill-intentioned. She didn't do that. She just continued to rail into her, make her feel worse. And the fact that she then responds to her as if she's a child in trouble is just truly heartbreaking, because she's not. She's not a child. She is a grown woman who is being spoken to on such a demeaning level, and she truly believes it. She truly believes that while she has no idea what she did, what she could have possibly done, she truly believes that I must have done something. And that's terrible, and I feel terrible. And it's just so depressing because she didn't do anything. And it's, she says that she knows Nicole's not going to help her. She knows that she's going to have to go out and win this on her own. They don't have any sense of what type of comp it's going to be. So when I saw that the type of competition, I'm like, there's no way that you're going to be able to win this on your own. I legit, and because I didn't actually hear, I just knew who won. I legit was expecting Nicole to just stand there the entire time. Which I was like, well, I guess she has to compete because I know that Michael and Brittany just didn't get it by default. Because, like we talked about earlier, we see Jasmine, who just has a panic attack and is cleared to do the comp. And I'm watching that and I'm saying, okay, well, if you can't, obviously, Turner's probably the one that should be doing the other position. But if you can't do the heights position, then at least try and do the other one. Yeah, you're going to be on your scooter. You're going to be hopping around, but you can at least try. And you don't even have to put pressure on that other foot. So I don't know why she couldn't even at least try doing the other part. It's better than nothing. And if it just wasn't working, just stop in the middle, but at least you tried. So, yeah, Maureen, I do agree. She probably will continue to find other ways to back out of other competitions if she has any reason to not want to be part of it. And you could even tell when her name was drawn for the veto, she was so unhappy. You could just see the look on her face. She had no desire to be any part of that competition. But there she was. So she didn't compete. But, we do see once the competition does start, Taylor says, Nicole just keeps yelling at me to focus. She's just standing there. Oh, why don't you help me and tell me where these pieces should go? Because you have a much grander picture of everything. And she doesn't. She doesn't do anything to help. So we see ultimately, obviously, you didn't even have to know what was going to happen to go into that episode after seeing Jasmine and Turner not competing, realizing, well, Michael and Brittany are going to win this. That's a given. So we see that happens. And then after they win, we see Joseph talking to Michael in the storage room. And he says that it's time to bring the others in, right? We have the opportunity we were hoping for. We didn't know if we were going to get it. Now we got it. So now we got to move, because if we don't do this now, it's going to be too late. So he goes up to Michael and he tells him that they're all on the outs. And Michael knows it. Michael knows he's been on the outs of every single competition. And it's good because the way it's kind of approached to Michael, at least from what I could tell from the episode perspective, is that he's not telling him, hey, I've been talking to some people, or we started performing this thing. He just went up to him and was like, hey, I've been thinking we need to get something together. We need to form something, which is great because, yes, they are kind of trying to do an onion alliance where they have, I say only 2 layers, but they have the core 4 and they have the other 3 coming in to make the final 7. So I think that's a really good, that's the best way to do that, is especially someone like Michael, who you're approaching because you are telling him, hey, me and you, we're on the outs, right? So you got to make sure he still feels like you're not in the ins when he's on the outs. And he needs to feel like he's included from the beginning. So they go to him and they're like, or he goes to him and he's like, listen, we need to get a group together. We're all on the outs and I'm scared of what's about to happen. Michael agrees. He's like, yeah, like we're coming down. We need to try and make a move. So Joseph goes to Brittany, starts talking to Brittany, telling her the same thing. Monty goes and gets Taylor, and Taylor's like, oh, Monty says, people want to talk to me. So I better go up there and see what they want to say. And Monty tells Taylor that, hey, we have confirmation that, the girls are a thing, and they have created an alliance, or that they say that all the other girls have formed a group, and that you guys are not in it, right? We have confirmation that there is this group that's existed, and they specifically left you and Brittany out. And he tells them that, the other girls, the other side of the house, they're strong-arming all of them, and, they're forcing them to do whatever is best for all of their game, but has no desire and takes no interest in Monty and Kyle's game. And clearly has no interest in Taylor and Brittany in any of them's game. And Michael, because Michael's part of Pals Pack, right? So they start putting all this together, and they're like, we need to form a group. Amira's the head of the snake. We need to take her out. And I swear to God, the music choice for this, holy crap, that was literally Avengers soundtrack that was playing while they were forming this group of outsiders that are coming together to completely take out the other side, because they realize, and they even say, this is the last week we could do this, because if we waited until this week, the other side, they were going to get Taylor out, which would have left them with only 5 people. They wouldn't have the numbers to do anything moving forward. They would be stuck. They wouldn't have anywhere to go. So this was the last chance they had to make something like this happen, because they would have had the minority numbers the rest of the time. And Joseph says, listen, none of us are with S.H.I.E.L.D. We are all equal parts of this group. None of us are with S.H.I.E.L.D. And we are all a contributor, right? No one needs to feel on the outs. No one needs to feel left out. And we're just going to gun for this, and we're going to take them out. And that's it. They leave off at. So, that was the episode. Like I said, this was from a production editing the episode in a honest and realistic light. They did. I feel like they did the best they could with what they had. And this was one of the best episodes I've seen them edit. It's also, I've never been angrier watching an episode. I've never hated what I've seen more watching an episode. But at least we got to see the accurate portrayal. And, the fact that, all of that's gone on, this is the best we can hope for. And it's actually given us hope for the rest of the season, because other seasons like this, they might have realized that, maybe they've crossed the line, but they never take action on it. we see people like Turner that's like, he genuinely feels bad about everything that's been going on, the way Taylor's been treated, the way everyone's been ostracized. He even mentioned like a day or two ago that just a few days ago, he couldn't stand the thought of having to talk with Brittany. He was mortified that Brittany was going to come in and he's going to have a long talk with her because he couldn't stand her. And now he's grown that he's found out that he's actually liked Brittany quite a bit, and they've connected on a lot of levels. And they are truly in a position of there's no going back. They know what the goal is. They know how the rest of everything's been going on. And it's time to move on. And they are actually moving on and going forward. And I'm incredibly happy with the turnaround we're getting. And this is going to be a very fun, I'm hoping, a very fun rest of the season to watch. Anything can happen. It's only week 3. We'll see where the future holds. But as the announcer pointed out, tomorrow's episode, after we see the veto ceremony, tomorrow's episode is going to be, it's what you're going to see tomorrow. If you haven't already seen the feeds, if you haven't already heard the updates, I watched all of it Monday. This is Big Brother at its peak. If you have any plans tomorrow night, cancel them. Tune in tomorrow. Watch this live eviction. I don't know how I don't know how they're going to get away with an hour episode. I would be beyond shocked if we actually have any part of the HOH take place tomorrow. I would be beyond shocked if the evictee, which is probably going to be Mira, doesn't get her exit interview with Julie booted to Paramount Plus because they won't have enough time. If I was producers, I'd be calling CBS saying, hey, we got to figure out a way to get an extra hour of programming tomorrow night because we can't fit this in an hour. There's too much. I know they don't do that. I wish they did. I wish they could advocate for a longer slot. I know Jeff Pro's been talking for years about doing a 2-hour, having Survivor be a 2-hour show. I wish that was, and I wish Big Brother was, because there's just so much information on Thursday nights to take in, because it's got the longest time gap of days where nothing has gone on, because, Thursday is HOH, Friday is nominations, Veto is, the competition is Saturday, and then ceremony is Monday. So from Monday to Thursday, there's no competitions. There's no action being taken. All it is just talk and strategy. And we need more time for that. And we are going to need more time for tomorrow. So any of you that have not already seen, mark your calendars, clear them off. Tomorrow, you need to be on your couch watching the show. And then you need to come back here and watch the stream and watch the recap, because we're going to cover everything that wasn't said and that wasn't shown on the episode. We're not going to get into it yet because we've already been going for so long. We don't have enough time. Not even to start. All I can say is, like I said, it's Big Brother at its finest. It is peak Big Brother. And I have some other thoughts to share, but I don't want to get into it yet until tomorrow. But yeah, you are all in for a wild ride tomorrow. All right, let's take some questions. My cat, yes, we got a cat. It was a stray that we found, or my aunt found, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and so they found it. We took it in, got it to the vet. Its name is Rue. It's a cute little calico cat. It's really cute, about 8 weeks old or so. So yeah, got a cat. I already talked about Jasmine. Cole being a chief, they are known to be hotheads with really bad tempers. Yeah, and we won't get into like that side of stuff, but the mentality that officers have to have when dealing with citizens that they are, or dealing with suspects. The attitude that they have to have towards those people, I feel like does force them to kind of unknowingly integrate that into their personal lives for some. Not all, but I do think some can do that. And yeah, it's very interesting. Just trying to knock out the competition. I don't know what context you were talking about with that, Dylan. There's a lot of craziness that's been going on. And so, and I know when you sent that in, I know what part of the discussion. I just wasn't sure who you're in regards to. All I'll say is it is very much possible to take out competition and not have to be an evil person. Now, I agree 100%. This show is about social strategy. It's about locking 16 people in a house and seeing what they do, right? And regardless of whether or not this is what we want to see, this is life. This is reality, and this is how some people react in these scenarios. This is how some people chef. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, she's a chef. Yeah, they can. I definitely know what you mean with that. But this show is about observing people in their natural habitat. And this is people in their natural habitat. And so, well, yeah, none of us want to see any of this happen. None of us want to watch this. This is life. This is life, and this is how some people act. And it's just really good to see that it's not just that this season some of the other players, while they have for the first couple weeks been kind of a little intimidated to step forward and speak up and do something against not only them being left in the dark, but also the terrible way that some people have been treated, and speak up for other people. It's nice to see that action is being taken now, and that it's not just that they're not letting their games interfere, they're using it for their games. They're looking at it and saying, this is terrible. How can we take this, help correct it, help treat this poor woman better, and also use it as a game advantage instead of a game disadvantage? Because no matter what, it's going to be one or the other. So you don't have to feel like you're taking advantage of the situation and manipulating the girl. You're using it to an advantage and her game advantage. So again, it's been terrible watching all of this go down, but this is life. This is what the game is. And, it's the sad reflection of life. So yeah, Scrap Daddy, hey, thanks for joining. Glad to have you guys on. Your favorites are Michael number 1, Taylor, and Joseph 25. Joseph 25. He's finally 25. His brain's finally developed, as he's been saying all week, because he went into the house age 24, and now he's 25. So his brain's finally developed, and he can actually think properly now and see clearly now and make better decisions. He has been going around saying that all week. And Taylor, yeah. So personally, I'm as much as I hate everything that's going on, I wouldn't put Taylor, for me personally, I wouldn't include her in my top people. She has been, at least favorites, she has been the person I've been rooting for the most because of how pathetic it has been, how she's been treated. So just from that perspective, I do like her a lot. I wouldn't say she's one of my favorites, or she is one of my favorites. I wouldn't say she's in my top 3 exactly. But I have been rooting for her week after week just because she's been in such a terrible spot that, it's so satisfying to watch her fight back. And it's great. and we'll touch a little bit more on that tomorrow too, with how some stuff ends up after the veto meeting. Ceremony. It's ceremony. I will fight on that hill until I die. It's not veto meeting. It's the veto ceremony. And I hate when they call it the veto meeting. My favorites, I'm a little bit torn. Before this week, Michael has been my number one. Kyle's inching up there. Kyle and Joseph. And it's also so insane too to watch, because most people, they're on the outs. They are blindsided by their friend getting voted out, which is exactly what happened to Joseph, but yet they aren't able to turn that into anything. They feel stuck at the bottom. They're trying to figure out and understand why it happened and how it could have happened, but no one's giving them any information and no one's working with them. So they end up being whittled down little by little until they're gone the next week or two, right? That's not what happened. Joseph was able to turn this around. And where did this dude come from? I am totally buying into the fact that the day he turned 25, he literally became a brand new person. Because while he was talking some game here or there, he was not involved in anything. And whereas, yeah, Kyle and Monty have been on the outs and all this has been going on, they at least have been involved in a lot of gameplay. Now, whether they were spearheading that, whether they were getting what they wanted, they expressed what they wanted, and they were making large attempts to make that happen. Whereas Joseph really has just kind of been on the outs. But it's been great watching him be on the outs and flip it and turn it into his advantage. And then, so yeah, Michael has been my number one. I don't have a definitive number one right now. I'd say my three top people would be Michael, Kyle, and Joseph. Just outside, so with those all being tied for first right now, we'll revisit that in a week, but those being tied first for me right now, I would, if I had to, I would probably put Michael just a tier above because he's been so much more successful than the others so far, but that could change at any minute. Just below those three, that's where I would put Taylor. And then below her, I would put Monty. And out of the rest of the set, I don't know. Turner and Brittany are tied for me so far. There's really nothing else. There's no one else in the house that I have any interest in. The only other person I could possibly be made to care about is Alyssa, maybe. That's just because she's been in that area where she has noticed a lot of the stuff that's been going on. She tried to speak up against some of it, and she did try and make some stuff happen. But some of that changed a little bit after the veto meeting, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, she's the only other person I could possibly have above that. Marine, I meant to spell chef, not chief. Yeah, we talked about that. Mona, hi Mona. So over Jasmine and her fake accent and excuses. Yeah, we talked a lot earlier. I don't know if you were here about Jasmine and whether or not she's going to continue to come up with more stuff to get out of competitions. The thing with her accent is it's not fake, but it's played up dramatically. Like when you listen to her on the feed, she clearly has an accent, but it's not that. And it is so caked on. It is so forced on whenever she is saying anything that she knows is going to make the episode and in her DR sessions. Now, a lot of that is just production kind of pushing that and trying to get her to do that. But, it is very annoying. I do agree 100%. Michael's my favorite. Did Kyle ever behave badly to Taylor? He hasn't really ever behaved badly. Kyle does seem to be a really nice guy. If he has done anything specifically, I have missed it. I'm not going to completely excuse him, even there, because he has just like the others, not stood up for it, and it really hasn't addressed it much at all. So he has kind of been sitting by and letting it happen like everyone else. But I don't think he's ever added fuel. I mean, he's always been very polite to Taylor even then. And even like we said last week, he was campaigning initially to get Pooch out. But he was 100% convinced by Monty that, Taylor is coming for both of them, which she was, but that's only because she didn't have anyone else. And even she was only saying that because those are the people she was tied to the least. And the people she's tied to the most, she's loosely tied to. So I think once they started, that's the only reason why he ever had an issue with her. And even then, he wasn't clouded enough to not realize that this will, maybe this is not the way I perceive it. And maybe I need to take a better look at this. And he did. And he figured it out. He realized what was going on, and he took action and spearheaded this revolution. Do we think Turner got a nudge from production, or did he really magically change? No. The thing with Turner is, like we said earlier, he does not have any clear direction. He's just going off what he was told. He's had no insider information. Joseph's been way more in the loop of everything that Turner has, and Joseph was blindsided last week. Not at the live eviction, but he, the day or so before when he found out what was going to happen, he wasn't really sure what was going on. He was not brought into it to any degree. And Turner has been even less. Turner didn't know until like the day of that Pooch was leaving. And he only was going with Taylor because that's an easy boot. That's what the rest of the house wants. So I don't have to get any blood on my hands. I do think that's what his perception was. As we saw Nicole going up and talking to him and saying that, Taylor's coming after you. She said she's going to go after one of the guys, but even then, one of the guys, right? So that could be anyone. That she could have been easily changed from that. So I think he started to swap out. Can you imagine if Marvin was in the game instead of Joseph? I wish they both could have been. I'm not gonna lie. I was super excited to see Marvin. I love African accents. I absolutely love them. I was really excited to see him on there. I was really disappointed to see him gone. And to be honest, since we didn't get any interviews, just the initial first impressions of Joseph, I was like, okay, like you're replacing Monty with him. But that's turned out to be a really good thing. Now, who knows, right? I mean, who knows how Marvin could have done? And like I said, I wish we could have just completely swapped Marvin out for Paloma, or even Nicole and Daniel. Probably Daniel. Why don't we just swap him out for Daniel? Because Paloma was going to go early anyway, so we didn't have to worry about her. That was all going to happen anyway, and then he could have hopped on board. It would have been really interesting, though, because I won't get too much into this. There are far more people out there that can talk about this stuff far better than me. I'm not in any position to really go over any race stuff or anything. The one thing I'll say is it's been a lot of topic of conversation that while, yes, Taylor's not the only black woman in the house, there are multiple other black people. She's really the only dark-skinned person in the house, which, a lot of people are saying that it does make a big difference, because a lot of lighter-skinned individuals, they don't go through the same struggles that the darker-skinned people do. So it would have been very interesting to see someone that is from Africa being in that house. It to see how else it could have played out. Who knows if Taylor would have been as ostracized? She might have been able to find a friend and confidant in Marvin. Have we talked about Nicole? Yeah, it's upsetting. It's very upsetting. I had extremely high expectations. She seemed to be really good at the game. I still think that she could have been a really good player. had she not convinced herself. What I said earlier was Nicole, some people tell a lie and they convince themselves that that lie is true. And then you have people like Nicole and Daniel who has someone else tell a lie that they believe and then continue to reinforce that even after Paloma's gone. And several other people have already seen that, no, that was not true. That's not how it went down. It's just been really, really interesting to see that. All right, we've been going for an hour and 25 minutes. So we've been going on for quite a long time. Gonna have to go ahead and get started wrapping it up here. Thank you everyone that did join tonight. Yes, they lie to themselves a lot. And it is kind of part of the game, but it's the reinforcement of it is it's crazy watching how the human psyche can operate sometimes. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. Really glad to have all of you here. We'll be going live again tomorrow for the eviction episode. It's going to be a big one. And I can't even say too much about what's probably going to happen because it's going to spoil the veto ceremony. But you're not going to want to miss tomorrow. If they edit tomorrow's as accurately as they have tonight, you're not going to want to miss it. It's really fun. So yeah, like I said, thank you guys everyone for joining. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at DACChats, because if we have any pre-live anything that goes on, all the channel information, all the channel updates go there until we hit the tier to start putting on the community tab. So make sure to follow me at DACChats on Twitter. And like we said, we will see you guys again tomorrow. Have a great night.